When I was about 14 or 15, we only had one laptop in the house, which belonged to my mom. We all shared it. She used it for games, my brother used it for music, and I mostly used it for YouTube and watching shows like Game of Thrones. At that time, I was also figuring things out about myself, so I would occasionally use private browsing to look at things I probably shouldn't have been looking at. I always made sure to use incognito mode because I wasn't trying to get caught. But one day, I must have forgotten to close everything properly before going to bed. The next morning, my mom called me upstairs. I was confused because it was a Saturday and I didn't have school. When I got there, she showed me the laptop, and the screen was basically filled with explicit pop ups and content. I was completely frozen. Luckily, my mom isn't very tech savvy, so I quickly told her that sometimes when you click on game ads, those kinds of pop ups can appear, and that we probably needed antivirus software to prevent it. She actually believed me and said she would install one right away. I walked away relieved and learned a very important lesson. Always double check the computer before going to bed. The day my aunt's feet attacked the living room. Story related. When I was 16, I learned two important life lessons. Never trust a silent living room. Some smells can legally qualify as home intruders. It was a hot summer afternoon, and my aunt had fallen asleep on the couch after eating half a barbecue platter and watching 3 episodes of a crime show without moving once. The TV was still playing softly, the fan was spinning, and peace filled the house. Until the smell arrived. At first, I thought something died in the vents. I checked the kitchen trash. Nothing. I looked out the window, expecting to see a skunk fighting for its life. Nothing. Then I looked over at the couch. There she was, one sock halfway off, one bare foot hanging over the armrest like it had given up on society. The air around it looked blurry like heat waves on asphalt. I got closer and instantly regretted every decision that led me there. Her feet smelled like wet sneakers, onions, and broken promises. I swear the houseplants started leaning away from the couch, and I got close and got a good whiff to make sure that's what it was. I knew I had two options: wake her up and risk my life, or handle the situation myself like a responsible young man. So I went to the bathroom and grabbed the strongest smell-good spray I could find. It was some floral lavender vanilla thing that smelled like a candle store exploded. I crept back into the living room like a secret agent. PSSSHHHH. One spray. Nothing. PSSSHHHHHH. Two sprays. The air started fighting itself. The foot odor and lavender combined into a completely new chemical weapon. That's when my aunt suddenly woke up, sat straight up, and yelled, "Why does it smell like flowers and death in here?" I panicked and accidentally sprayed the couch cushion too. Now the whole room smelled like a haunted Bath and Body Works. She looked at me holding the spray bottle like I'd been caught committing a crime. I finally admitted, "Your feet started it." She stared at me for 5 full seconds before laughing so hard she almost fell off the couch. To this day, every time somebody brings out foot spray or air freshener at family gatherings, she points at me and says, "Don't let him near your feet. He acts first and asks questions later."
I met the 30 seconds girlfriend. Venting. A few days ago, I posted here about how I accidentally pretended to be a stranger's boyfriend in a cafe for about 30 seconds and nearly got into a fight over it. At the time, it felt like one of those weird, surreal, one-off moments that you just laugh about later and move on from. You know the kind I mean, the kind of story you tell your friends and everyone's shaking their heads like, "Wait, what actually just happened?" I genuinely didn't think I would ever see her again. I didn't even know her name. It was one of those random moments in life where everything happens so fast and you're just along for the ride. One second you're holding someone's coffee cup for them, the next you're suddenly their boyfriend in front of a cafe full of people. And somehow, miraculously, you survive without anyone getting hurt, or at least physically hurt. My ego definitely took some damage, though. But today, completely randomly, I ran into her again, and not at some weird coincidence cafe or a busy shopping street. No, I saw her at a community center. I don't even know why I was there. Maybe a class, maybe just wandering around pretending to be productive. It took me a second to recognize her. My brain literally paused for a moment because I wasn't expecting that at all. I had prepared for everything, meeting her again, never, but not this. I wasn't ready. We both sort of awkwardly acknowledged it at first. You know, that weird, silent mutual recognition that says, "Oh, wow, this is actually happening again." And then slowly we started talking, properly this time, normal conversation. No pretending, no chaos, no accidental cafe misunderstandings. It was like a completely different experience. I could see her smile, not the startled or suspicious kind, but a real one, the kind that makes you think, okay, maybe this is fine. At some point, I told her about the Reddit post I had written, the one describing the original 30-second boyfriend incident. I even showed it to her. She looked slightly annoyed at first, probably because, let's be honest, I had basically immortalized a very awkward, semi-embarrassing moment for the entire internet to see. But then, as she scrolled through the comments, I saw her smile start to creep in. It was subtle at first, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should laugh at me or with me. But soon enough, she was laughing softly, shaking her head, and I could tell she wasn't actually mad at me. We ended up talking for a while after that. Nothing dramatic, nothing chaotic, just a proper conversation. And honestly, it felt kind of nice. No pretense. No, I'm the stranger's boyfriend nonsense, just two people talking. We covered random things, community center stuff, classes, hobbies, the weather, and for a few minutes it felt normal. It felt real. Before leaving, I actually managed to ask for her number. And I swear, that felt like a bigger step than the entire original cafe situation. Asking for her number was terrifying in a way that pretending to be her boyfriend never was. There was actual pressure, actual stakes, actual social consequences if I messed it up. But somehow she gave it to me, and I left feeling cautiously optimistic. The funny part? Even after all of that, I still couldn't bring myself to ask her out on an actual date. I don't know why. Maybe the whole thing still feels unreal. Maybe I'm terrified of messing it up again. Or maybe I just wanted to savor the moment a little longer. Some part of me thinks the magic is in the awkwardness, in the unexpected, in the randomness of it all. I did tell her she should start using Reddit and maybe join this sub. So if by any chance she's reading this, would you go on a date with me? And honestly, as weird as this all is, I can't help but feel like life is full of these tiny, chaotic, beautiful coincidences. Like, the universe just wants to mess with you sometimes, and you can either scream in panic or laugh and roll with it. I chose to laugh this time. My little sister tried to pretend she was okay going empty-handed to her friend's birthday. Nonfiction. My little sister got invited to her first sleepover this weekend for her friend's birthday, and honestly, the whole thing has been making me emotional. It's just me, my mom, and my little sister at home, and money has been really tight lately. Bills are piling up, groceries need to be stretched, and every little unexpected expense seems to throw us off. Even though my sister is only 10, you can tell she started noticing that sometimes we can't just buy things on a whim, and I think that awareness made this birthday feel a little heavier for her. We've been stressing for days because all the other girls were talking about the gifts they got. One bought the birthday girl a cute dress she picked out herself. Another got a gift card to a popular store, and someone else ordered one of those skincare sets girls are obsessed with right now. Meanwhile, my sister kept pretending she didn't care about bringing anything. She insisted, "It's fine, I don't need to bring a gift," even though I could tell she was lying through her smile. She wanted to seem brave and mature, but I could see her little heart beating fast every time she mentioned the party. Last night, as we were cleaning up the kitchen, she quietly asked me, "Do you think it's weird if I go empty-handed?" And I swear that question broke me a little. You could tell she was embarrassed, but trying not to make our mom feel bad. Her eyes flicked down to the floor, and her small hands fiddled with the hem of her pajama top. It was one of those moments where words feel heavy, and you just want to wrap your little sibling up in a hug and protect them from all the unfair things in the world. Then something wonderful happened. My boyfriend had overheard our conversation and disappeared into the other room for a minute. When he came back, he was holding a pair of AirPods he had literally just gotten for himself. He smiled and said, "Just let her give these, it's okay." My instinct was to protest, to say he didn't have to do that, but he just shrugged and explained that his friend had actually gotten them for him from Galaxy Bids anyway, so it wasn't a big deal to him. I can still picture my sister's face when he handed them to her. The change was instant. She went from trying not to cry to a glowing smile of pure, genuine excitement. Her little eyes sparkled, and she whispered a quiet thank you that I swear came straight from her heart. I know they're just AirPods, but to her, it meant the world. It meant she could walk into that sleepover feeling included like everyone else without the fear of being the only kid without a gift. Honestly, I don't think my boyfriend realizes how much that moment meant to me too. Watching him step in so casually, without making it feel like a big deal, showed me so much about kindness and empathy. It reminded me that gestures, no matter how small, can change someone's entire day, or even their whole perception of a situation. The next day, my sister came back from the sleepover absolutely buzzing. She told me she had a fantastic time and had a lot of fun. When I asked her about the gift, she laughed and said all the kids went nuts about it. Apparently, the birthday girl even had the AirPods on all night, playing nothing at all because my sister still doesn't have a phone. It was such a sweet, silly detail that made me laugh along with her. Seeing her so happy, so proud, and so included filled my heart in a way I can't even describe. This whole situation reminded me of the small but meaningful ways people can make a difference. It wasn't just about the AirPods. It was about making sure my sister felt seen and valued, giving her the confidence to enjoy a special moment with her friends. It's funny how something that seems trivial to an adult can feel monumental to a child. And honestly, it reminded me to notice the small acts of kindness in my own life, too. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who's left positive comments, and especially the comments about my boyfriend. He didn't think about recognition or thanks, he just acted. And sometimes that's what makes all the difference, the quiet, thoughtful gestures that leave a lasting impact without fanfare. My little sister's smile that night will stick with me forever, and it's a small reminder that empathy and generosity, no matter the size, can shape someone's world. Book I am reading is reminding me of my 3 stalkers. Venting. I'm reading a book that reminds me of 3 stalker experiences I've had, and for some reason I needed a place to share them. The first one happened when I was 13. Let's call her Rosemary. The resemblance between us was uncanny. We even have a picture dressed up similarly for Halloween. Looking at it now, it's truly eerie. We could almost be twins. I first met Rosemary during middle school orientation, the week before 6th grade began. It didn't take long for us to notice just how alike we were. Same classes, same haircut, same eye color, same height. Our moms looked similar, and both of our dads were deadbeats. It was like someone had copied and pasted our lives. Then she asked me, "Do you want to be best friends?" I was a very introverted, nerdy bookworm back then with barely any friends. Of course, I said yes immediately. I remember running home, yelling, "Mom, Mom, I've got a BFF." At first, everything was perfect. We became inseparable. Teachers hated us because we insisted on doing everything together. But then my health issues started interfering with my schedule. I had to leave in the afternoons for doctor visits, so I ended up in a different class. That's when Rosemary's behavior escalated. She tried to change her schedule to avoid being without me, begged her mom to bribe the principal, and constantly tried to find ways to sneak into my new class. I also made some new friends, Taylor, Harley, and Shayla. Taylor and I bonded immediately. She asked me questions, cared about my day, and genuinely listened. Rosemary hated it. She became jealous, clingy, and sometimes physically aggressive, digging her nails into my arm or finding other ways to leave marks without causing permanent harm. After 6 months of constant following, phone calls to my house, messages, rumors, and manipulation, Rosemary was pulled out of school. I later learned she had a history of doing the same thing to other friends. 2 years later, she was in the news for cutting the brakes on her ex-boyfriend's car after a breakup. He survived, thankfully. The second stalker was far more unsettling. I volunteered at my local animal shelter at 16 where I met Johnny. He wasn't conventionally attractive, but he had a smile that made your stomach flip. Joker-like humor, shaggy hair, leather jacket, tall and lean, he had a bad boy with a heart vibe. We bonded over 2 weeks assigned to the dog section, and I developed feelings for him. He asked me out 2 months later. It was a simple brunch and walk in our tourist town. My mom and stepdad knew him. Our small town made sure everyone kept tabs on everyone else. The date seemed fine at first, though he broached weird topics. We became friends, and when I later started dating someone else, Johnny flipped out. Possessive, obsessive, and unpredictable. I blocked him on all platforms, and eventually he seemed to vanish. But then, months later, bouquets started appearing on my doorstep. 4 dozen roses every Friday sent anonymously. The card said, "From Hatter to Alice," an inside joke between us from our Alice in Wonderland fandom. Cameras didn't catch him in person, the florist delivered them. One morning, someone even used a dog whistle at 4 a.m., making our 3 dogs howl in terror. This went on for 5 months. Eventually, I gathered proof, got a restraining order, and he moved away. Last I heard, he had multiple arrests and complicated legal issues. These experiences shaped me in ways I'm still realizing. They taught me boundaries, how to trust my instincts, and how to protect myself. Even now, married with my first child on the way, I maintain a shadowed social media presence. And while these stories are terrifying, sharing them feels like reclaiming some power over events that once made me feel helpless. I also have two other stalker stories to share, but this one already got long. Has anyone else had a stalker resurface years later, or had multiple encounters like this? I'd genuinely like to hear if others have survived similar situations and how they processed it. I met the 30 seconds girlfriend. Venting. A few days ago, I posted here about how I accidentally pretended to be a stranger's boyfriend in a cafe for about 30 seconds and nearly got into a fight over it. At the time, it felt like one of those weird, surreal, one-off moments that you just laugh about later and move on from. You know the kind I mean, the kind of story you tell your friends and everyone's shaking their heads like, wait, what actually just happened? I genuinely didn't think I would ever see her again. I didn't even know her name. It was one of those random moments in life where everything happens so fast and you're just along for the ride. One second you're holding someone's coffee cup for them, the next you're suddenly their boyfriend in front of a cafe full of people. And somehow, miraculously, you survive without anyone getting hurt, or at least physically hurt. My ego definitely took some damage, though. But today, completely randomly, I ran into her again, and not at some weird coincidence cafe or a busy shopping street. No, I saw her at a community center. I don't even know why I was there. Maybe a class, maybe just wandering around pretending to be productive. It took me a second to recognize her. My brain literally paused for a moment because I wasn't expecting that at all. I had prepared for everything, meeting her again, never, but not this. I wasn't ready. We both sort of awkwardly acknowledged it at first. You know, that weird, silent mutual recognition that says, "Oh, wow, this is actually happening again." And then slowly we started talking, properly this time, normal conversation. No pretending, no chaos, no accidental cafe misunderstandings. It was like a completely different experience. I could see her smile, not the startled or suspicious kind, but a real one, the kind that makes you think, okay, maybe this is fine. At some point, I told her about the Reddit post I had written, the one describing the original 30-second boyfriend incident. I even showed it to her. She looked slightly annoyed at first, probably because, let's be honest, I had basically immortalized a very awkward, semi-embarrassing moment for the entire internet to see. But then, as she scrolled through the comments, I saw her smile start to creep in. It was subtle at first, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should laugh at me or with me. But soon enough, she was laughing softly, shaking her head, and I could tell she wasn't actually mad at me. We ended up talking for a while after that. Nothing dramatic, nothing chaotic, just a proper conversation. And honestly, it felt kind of nice. No pretense. No, I'm the stranger's boyfriend nonsense, just two people talking. We covered random things, community center stuff, classes, hobbies, the weather, and for a few minutes it felt normal. It felt real. Before leaving, I actually managed to ask for her number. And I swear, that felt like a bigger step than the entire original cafe situation. Asking for her number was terrifying in a way that pretending to be her boyfriend never was. There was actual pressure, actual stakes, actual social consequences if I messed it up. But somehow she gave it to me, and I left feeling cautiously optimistic. The funny part? Even after all of that, I still couldn't bring myself to ask her out on an actual date. I don't know why. Maybe the whole thing still feels unreal. Maybe I'm terrified of messing it up again. Or maybe I just wanted to savor the moment a little longer. Some part of me thinks the magic is in the awkwardness, in the unexpected, in the randomness of it all. I did tell her she should start using Reddit and maybe join this sub. So if by any chance she's reading this, would you go on a date with me? And honestly, as weird as this all is, I can't help but feel like life is full of these tiny, chaotic, beautiful coincidences. Like, the universe just wants to mess with you sometimes, and you can either scream in panic or laugh and roll with it. I chose to laugh this time. I was supposed to be a lesson for my mom. Nonfiction. My mom had me 2 weeks after turning 15, in the spring of 1999, at home, surrounded by quiet shame. That early start shaped everything about the family I grew up in, and it wasn't until much later in life that I began to unpack what it meant for me. Growing up, it was drilled into me that my mom was the problem. What kind of irresponsible SL*T gets pregnant at 15? People whispered behind her back, or sometimes directly to us. I hated her for it as a kid. She had stolen my childhood before I even had a chance to understand what childhood meant. She never knew how to be a mom, and she never stopped having kids without stopping to truly grow into the parent we needed her to be. It was easy for resentment to grow, a vine that wrapped itself around my early years. It wasn't until I became a mother myself that the truth finally clicked. The same people who were quick to call my mom a failure, the same people I thought were right all along, had failed her too. My grandparents, despite their appearances of care, had made countless decisions that left her unprepared. The cycle of judgment and neglect was painfully clear. It's hard to admit something like that, so most people don't. Instead, they project. Yes, my mom was a difficult child, but she was also shaped by generations who made mistakes she had no power to fix. My grandmother, in particular, used me as a lesson. I was supposed to exhaust my mother so she wouldn't make the same mistakes again. In a cruel way, it worked, at least for a while. My sister was born when I was 4 years old. We joke now that she's technically my first child because, in many ways, I had to take on a parental role long before I understood what childhood was. One of my earliest memories is of the first time my mom left us home alone. There was a fire in an adjacent apartment building, and my mom wanted to shoot her shot with the firemen. I was freshly 5 years old. I don't know if she was gone for 30 minutes or several hours, but it felt like an eternity to me. I watched her leave from the dingy window, the dripping AC unit wedged haphazardly into the frame, and I remember feeling, truly knowing, that I was alone in the world for the first time. I waited at that window a long time, hoping to see her return. Eventually, my baby sister's fussing pulled me back into reality. She had been left in her high chair, too small to move herself. I couldn't see over the tray table, so I told her not to worry. I pushed the high chair up to the counter, then dragged a chair over for myself and sat on the counter so I could reach. I fed her baby puffs, one shaky hand at a time, while pretending everything was fine, all the while wishing that someone would come back for us. I realized even then that no one cared about me as a person. I had been a tool for my family since before I was even born, an emotional placeholder, a small body meant to absorb their mistakes, an invisible caretaker in a household that demanded more than I could give. And yet I survived. I grew into someone capable of seeing the truth of my upbringing, someone who could recognize the cycle of neglect and begin to untangle it. I am a mother now, and while my childhood left scars, it also left lessons I never wanted to learn the hard way but now hold close. I know what it means to be responsible, to see a child not as a tool but as a person with needs, fears, and dreams. Writing this has been strange. I've always thought I would write a book to cope, to tell the story fully and honestly, but putting it down on paper, on the page, is intimidating. I feel out of my element, unsure of the right words to carry the weight of my experience. But here it is, imperfect, raw, and deeply human. Thank you for reading. I hope that sharing this story can be a step toward understanding, not just for me, but for anyone who has ever felt overlooked, burdened, or invisible in their own family. And if you've ever lived through something similar, I hope this reminds you that your experience matters too, and that survival, despite it all, is something to honor. Girlfriend thought I cheated, but I'm just stupid. Nonfiction. Back in 2012, I had a girlfriend. Let's call her Doris for the purposes of this story. Doris had a habit of leaving articles of clothing at my place. Now, I lived in what you could describe as a frattish house with 4 other bro dudes who were basically experts at avoiding any responsibility. When Doris's stuff showed up in the laundry, it would just circulate endlessly. Nobody knew what to do with it, so it got washed, dried, and folded so many times that, honestly, they were probably the cleanest pairs of panties on earth by the time they finally disappeared. Eventually, I moved out of that chaotic house and into a slightly more manageable apartment with just one other bro dude. By that time, I had another girlfriend, Caitlin. We'd been together for maybe 8 months, and let me tell you, at this point in my life, I was a full-on monster pothead, wake and bake, prime-time overthinking type of stoner. My priorities were play Overwatch, maybe shower, do laundry, repeat. One day, I'm doing laundry, and I notice a pair of bright pink panties mixed in with my clothes. Yep, Doris's. I didn't think anything of it. I'd seen them a million times before. I tossed them on my dresser where they slid off and disappeared behind it. No big deal. I went back to gaming, life rolling on. Fast forward 3 months. Caitlin had got me a new lamp and every single plug on my surge protector was already taken. So we moved the dresser away from the wall to get to an outlet, and there they were. Bright pink panties, staring at us like little fabric accusations. I was already feeling the dab I'd taken 30 minutes prior, so when Caitlin noticed them, her reaction hit me like a truck. "What the fuck are these?" she demanded, and my brain immediately short-circuited. I tried. "Wait, no, that's not a thing." She pressed, "Whose are these?" "They're Doris S," I said, and she exploded. "So you're fucking Doris again." Here S where it got really tricky. I tried to explain they were from a long time ago, from the chaotic frat house laundry cycle, but it sounded dumb, probably like I had hidden them there on purpose. My stoned brain was like, abort mission, abort mission. I begged for a little time to explain properly. "Give me 10 minutes, I said, not the smoothest negotiation tactic, but somehow it calmed things down. I walked her through the whole history, showed her there was nothing going on, let her go through my phone, basically everything I could do to prove I wasn't a monster. The night ended okay. 2 days later, the universe had other plans. Doris texts me, "Why is this girl asking me about my underwear?" Apparently, Caitlin had gone through my phone, found Doris's number, and sent her a picture of the panties asking if they were hers. I was stunned. I called Doris, explained the whole ridiculous situation, and she's chill about it. "It sounds exactly like you," she says, smooths everything over. Caitlin comes over later, apologizes. We move past it until I go to the bathroom. I come back and Caitlin has my phone again. "Why the fuck did you call Doris today? How am I supposed to believe anything you say?" At this point, I'm just done. I grab my phone, call Doris on speakerphone, and we hash everything out in real time. Everyone gets clarity. Everyone survives. Caitlin and I eventually broke up, maybe a year later. Not because of this incident, just life. But it's forever the story of how I got accused of cheating because I was a lazy, high, and generally terrible communicator. Honestly, I deserved part of it, but it remains one of the funniest and most chaotic memories of my youth. My niece made me cry, and her heart was broken at 13 years old. Nonfiction. My niece has had a few rough years, but there's one thing that has always lit her up: dancing. Even before she could attend formal classes, she would follow the choreography to popular music videos with a precision that amazed me. I remember the first time I saw her moving in perfect sync with a video, her little body keeping rhythm with every beat. I was stunned, not just by her ability, but by the sheer joy she radiated while dancing. It was effortless, magical even, and I knew she had something special. Seeing her talent inspired me to take hip-hop dance lessons myself. When my sister noticed, she watched her daughter's eyes light up with excitement. In that moment, she decided to truly believe in her kid. Despite financial stress and the everyday challenges of life, she enrolled her daughter in a proper dance school, following her heart rather than letting worry hold her back. 4 months later, it was time for the year-end recital. The auditorium was packed, buzzing with parents and grandparents, the energy of expectation thick in the air. I had never seen her perform in front of a crowd before, so my excitement was tinged with nervous anticipation. When they announced her song and the music started, I looked at her as she took her first step, and I couldn't hold back the tears. There was no fear in her movements. Every motion was confident, every step synced flawlessly with the rhythm. She glided across the stage as if the music had been inside her all along. She stood out effortlessly, commanding attention without even trying. I glanced at her mother beside me, and I saw tears streaming down her face as well. Pride radiated from her in a way I've rarely seen. We exchanged a silent look, both of us marveling at how this tiny human could move with such grace and power. After the recital, I watched as my sister whispered to herself that the financial sacrifices had been worth every penny. Her daughter's happiness, her talent, and the sheer joy in that moment had made all the struggles feel small. Later that day, we went out to celebrate: boba tea, ice cream, and a walk along the beach. The sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold, and for a while everything felt peaceful. As we walked, my niece paused and looked up at me, her small face serious. "My dad chose cars over me," she said quietly. My heart broke into pieces. I held her hand a little tighter and knew I had to tell my sister the next morning. Her father is obsessed with cars. Every weekend from spring through the end of summer, he's at car meets, completely absorbed. The rest of his free time revolves around his hobby, leaving little room for family. My sister had stopped forcing him to be involved, letting him make his own choices. The results were disappointing. After that conversation, she laid it out clearly. She didn't care what he did with his life, but he couldn't be a terrible father. Important events, like this recital, the only one for the year and her daughter's first, demanded his presence. The truth was, he wasn't much of a family guy. He tried in his own way, but you could see that he never really wanted this story. Once my sister stopped expecting him to participate, he stopped making any effort entirely. But after her talk, something shifted. He went out with the kids, took them shopping, and even if he didn't fully understand it, he had made a small step toward showing up. Money and material things can't buy memories, experiences, or trust, something I hope he realizes someday. The moral of the story is simple but profound. Be present. Your presence is worth more than any gift, any paycheck, or any hobby you love. Showing up matters. It shapes lives, builds confidence, and lets the people you care about know that they matter. My niece's recital reminded me of that truth in the most powerful way. Her joy and her talent illuminated the importance of presence, not just in the big moments, but in the countless small ones that lead up to them.